Hi, this is Chase Utley, and this is the Phillies Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Phillies Show. Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury, Todd Zalecki. It's Friday, September 27th, 2024, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Jim and I today. Jim, how we doing? We doing good?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Well. Getting ready for that final Phillies series of the season. They keep checking off some of their goals here.
They did one last night or Wednesday night. They clinched the first round bye, which is something that obviously they wanted to do, even though the Braves have said that, oh man, that first round bye was a killer for us. Are you buying the first round bye stuff? If you're a Phillies fan, should you be nervous about the first round bye?
I think just as many teams have, conquered that week off. I mean, Houston's had it a while and they seem to do pretty well. But I do think baseball is an everyday game, and you need to keep your sharpness and your edge. And if somehow don't play well, it becomes a convenient excuse that, we lost our edge because there was a bye. But I don't know if there's a perfect solution. I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And when I look at this Phillies team with a lot of stars north of 30, a lot of stars banged up, some really key starting pitchers and bullpen guys who've carried a heavy load on this particular team, I think the rest is going to be valuable.
Yeah, I think so too. But we kind of talked about this the last time we got together, and Bryce made a point to mention that clinching the bye, and they said, and then we'll see what the lineups look like after that. Almost saying like, yeah, I can maybe use a couple days. He didn't want to name anybody else. He said a bunch of guys can maybe use a couple days, those final 3 or 4 games to give them a little.
Been there.
What's that?
But they've played.
Oh yeah, right. Well, I think it sounded to me like they wanted to make sure they locked up that bye. So It will be interesting to see what the lineups do look like this weekend in Washington.
And with the bye, they're going to get their rest.
That's also true. Yeah,
so,
that's also true. Would you be gonna?
I think the rest will do them well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Rob basically said, I'm not going to put guys in harm's way to get that number 1 seed. What would you do? In other words, how important is that number 1 seed to you?
It's important to me, especially in the NLCS, but you got to get there. So you have to prioritize. I think you always have to prioritize the health of your players because they're the guys who ultimately will deliver you where you want to go. So, Wheeler and Nola pitch Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
I'm just monitoring. If they're cruising and you're up 6-0, then I'm going to protect them and get them out of there and try to save a little bit for a few bullets. If you go into that game, basically tied with the Dodgers or a game behind the Dodgers, and you need that game, and they're losing or whatever, and you're not stressing. These pitchers are not stressing physically. Then it might ride them a little bit. So it's kind of read and react as the game goes along. But if I think they're in peril, if I think putting their health in jeopardy or their performance over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and hopefully a month in peril, then I'm getting them out of there. I don't think the home field, it would be nice to have. It would be really nice to have, but it is not the be all and end all. And we saw that in 08 and 09 when the Phillies danced off the field in Dodger Stadium. This team can win anywhere if it plays well.
Agree 100%. Now, this might be a dumb question for you, but Saturdays is Wheeler's start. And I was looking at his numbers because everybody's talking about Cy Young. He's at 193 and 2/3 innings. So he's got to go 6 1/3 to hit 200. And I know everybody's going to say, who cares? But I think that's a number that means something to Zach. So say he's pitching well, but the pitch count, I'm not saying he's getting in danger zone area. Would you push him to 6 1/3 just to get him 200 innings if you're Rob Thompson? Or do you go, I'm sorry, buddy, I know you want to get there. And maybe Zach would say, I really don't care, but 200 innings, I think there's only going to be like one guy this year that gets over that number.
It all depends on the stress that he has pitched to that day, how stressful the innings are.
Right.
Inning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It depends. If he's sailing and he's cruising, yeah, why not? I'm not going to put him in jeopardy because I need to jump on his back in October.
Yeah, he's not going to, if he's assuming he starts game 1 of the NLDS, that would be a week from Saturday. Mm-hmm. Have a whole week rest. So I don't know, something that it jumped in my head when popped in my head when I was looking at his season stats and like, does he actually have a chance to beat Chris Sale? Interesting. It's close.
I think you're 100% right, though. I'm sure 200 innings means a lot to him because he's got that old school mentality. Finish where you start. Innings mean something. So, and you'd have to weigh in the fact that he's going to have 5 days off. I just can't go in with a script. I need to see how that day unfolds, how he looks, how the ball's coming out of his hands, what the opposing team's swings look like, the stress of his innings, the stress of his pitches. Is it high stress or is it just smooth sailing? All that is going to go into it, and I'm also going to talk to him between innings. So we'll see we'll see how they do.
We're talking about the Phillies getting a week off. Who's not going to get the week off is the Braves and Mets. They got that game rained out last night, so now they have to. They're going to play they're probably going to play a doubleheader on Monday with game 1 of the NL wildcard series on Tuesday. That's a wild situation.
And the Braves have a tough final series against Kansas City that needs every win it can get. Now the Braves have to. The Mets have to go to Milwaukee, and they got to gut out everything they can gut out. It's amazing how many times we've seen this over the years. We always talk about April weather, but September weather impacts so many things over the years. I remember hurricanes. I remember a hurricane at the Vet. They moved the time up once.
That was
Schilling going for 300 strikeouts down on Miami and dodging a hurricane. And it's crazy. September weather because all of a sudden now it impacts what happens in the playoffs.
Totally. A couple of years ago, remember that in DC? There was did they have 4 or 5 games? There was some weird.
In 2022, there was so much rain, and the Phillies had to play 2 doubleheaders, right?
Every weather expert's they're not playing a single game. They got all those games in. It's unbelievable.
That's right. There was a hurricane. I remember Hurricane Ian.
Yeah, and everybody said there's no chance they play these games or there's going to be massive. They somehow got every single game in. It was amazing. And then they got to Houston and clinched in Houston.
I'll tell you what, New York is buzzing about the Mets.
Yeah.
And, I love stories of teams and players that finish strong. Like Nick Castellanos has a big night on Wednesday. He has really turned it on since the middle of May.
Mm-hmm.
The Houston Astros were left for dead. They have really turned it on. The New York Mets were left for dead. They have really turned it on. Both teams were, are they going to sell? Are they going to sell?
Right.
No, they're, one's in and one's right there. But New York is really buzzing. Before I went to bed last night, I flipped on the radio, as I occasionally do. And in Philadelphia, it was Eagles. That was all they were talking about was Eagles. So I flipped up the dial to the New York station. All they were talking about was baseball, Yankees and the Mets.
Really?
Yeah. It's and part of it was because the Mets have been hot. Now they're facing this rain situation in Atlanta. What's that going to do to them? But I still think, my God, it would be unthinkable back in the day because back only division winners went to the playoffs. But can you imagine a Mets Phillies playoff series?
That would be so cool. That would be cool. It would be a nightmare logistically for us to cover it just because there'd be so many, it's the crush of people, but it would be a lot of fun if you're a baseball fan, which we are. That would be a great series. 2 teams, two cities that hate each other.
Yes. Speaking of being a baseball fan, I watching some of these highlights of them close the Coliseum in Oakland is kind of sad. I mean, that, when I was just coming of age as a baseball fan, as a kid, was when the A's were winning those 3 World Series. And I can still see highlights in my mind of Gene Tennis hitting a bunch of home runs in the World Series and then bouncing up that staircase in left field at the Coliseum. And then, the team I grew up watching, the 75 Red Sox, go in there and end the A's, dynasty, the 3 straight World Series. And then as a sports writer, as a baseball writer, working at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Actually, you remember the famous game where Jeter made that great play and cut down Jeremy Giambi at the plate? I actually covered. I was at that game.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. And it's kind of sad seeing that place close and the fans be disappointed. But you know, the world changes.
Yeah, it's Ricky Henderson's daughter threw out the first pitch at a game the other day, and that's where it kind of hit me. I was like, gosh, man, I think of Ricky Henderson. I know he played for the Yankees and a bunch of other teams, but for me, he's Oakland A's all the way. When I was a kid coming up, I think he, just running wild against my hometown Brewers.
And that stadium, there was a kid we both know who actually pitched a high school championship game or got the save. He played shortstop. Then he came in and got the save in a big championship playoff qualifier in Northern California in prep, high school baseball. And he actually threw 94 miles an hour, according to his high school coach, who told me the story. And that kid's name was Jimmy Rollins. So
that's right.
That's
right.
I think about all those things when I see that building get set to close. And of course, they started right here in Philadelphia. Now they're going to be moving for a fourth time.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, Jim, let's break out some them's fighting words.
Fighting words.
Them's Fighting Words is presented by Scheib Vintage Sports. Get unique throwback Phillies tees, hats, and sweatshirts from local artists at their shops in Center City, Wayne, and Westchester. And of course, you can always buy it online at scheibsports.com. Postseason's around the corner. Everybody needs their fresh Phillies gear. Jim, them fighting words, to me, one thing popped out. Sure, popped out to you too, which is Rob Thompson on what night did they clinch? Tuesday night, Monday night, Monday night, Monday night. They clinched, and Rob Thompson gives a speech. He brings in John Middleton, and he drops, "I want my bleeping trophy back." He has been saying for a long time, maybe this is finally the year. They're set up for it.
Yeah, the history of that remark was they win in 08, and then they get back to the World Series, and they lose to the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. And he said that to, I think, Ryan Howard in the clubhouse after that loss. And it's become this mantra, it's become something, we all say, and he jokes about, but deep down inside, John Middleton means it. He wants his bleeping trophy back. And, he's an owner who backs up his words. If I'm a fan, he's the type of owner I want owning all my teams, because he wants to win, and he's going to throw out the resources to back it up and try to make it happen. So, after they clinched, in the history of it, we know the history going back to 2009. And everybody knows it. Even Gabe Kapler mentioned it in his introductory press conference years ago. And then when they had the introductory meeting in Clearwater in February, this spring training, John Middleton addressed the team, and he, made mention of the famous quote, and he wants his bleeping trophy back. And then before they popped champagne corks on Monday night, Rob Thompson brought John Middleton to the middle of the room and said, "John, we're going to get it for you." So a lot of confidence, and they should be confident. They got a hell of a team. I think they might have the best team entering the postseason tournament, but it's about the team that plays the best. Yeah. And there are a lot of aspects of the game that they need to shine in: starting pitching, bullpen, defense, base running, offense. They need to be consistent on offense, avoid some of the things that give them a lot of problems. We know what that is: chase and swing and miss. And they just need to be consistent offensively, defensively, get the starting pitching, get the bullpen. It's about the team that plays the best. And if they play the best, then they'll get his bleeping trophy back.
Exactly. Well, he said this a couple times now within last year. And I love it. He's like, nobody really talks about owners who, made the most money during their tenure. He's like, nobody talks about how much money did the Yankees make in the 20s and the 60s or whenever they had their runs. He wants to be remembered as a guy who brought some World Series championship trophies to the Phillies, because people will very fondly remember him for that many decades from now. Jim, we got some we ask for some listener questions, viewer questions. So let's rattle off a few. Let's start with this one. Everybody got a bunch of these because it's always on mind. This is from 30 Ballparks on Instagram. What does the future hold for Taijuan Walker in Philadelphia? JT Nason on Instagram also asks, why would Rob Thompson put Taijuan Walker in with the bases loaded and 2 outs? He put him in the bases loaded in that second inning on Tuesday, basically because he said he needs to find out if this guy can come into a dirty inning and get the job done. And he showed he could not get the job done, did not get the job done. He walked the first 2 batters he faced. Both of them were 8-pitch at bats. And I think that I mean, I don't see how you can put him on the postseason roster. I asked Rob after that game on Tuesday, that last bullpen spot. So if the Phillies carry a 12-man pitching staff, 4 starters, 8 relievers, it would give him an extra bench guy. Does he feel that he needs to have that 8th bullpen guy, that last bullpen guy? Does he need him to be somebody who, if the game goes extra innings? Now remember, the current extra inning rules are not in play in the postseason. Right. So you don't have the automatic runner. So you could theoretically have an 18-inning game. Asked him if he feels like he needs somebody that can go 4, 5, 6 innings in an emergency situation. He says he doesn't feel that they need that they have enough guys in there that can go multiple innings. And whoever that 8th man could be is going to be somebody that can go multiple innings. So I don't think Taijuan is going to be on the postseason roster. I don't know how you could put him on the postseason roster. I don't know who that last guy is going to be. Colby Allard. It could be Spencer Turnbull. He's going to throw on Friday. And talking to a couple people the other day at the ballpark, they don't think it's a pipe dream or anything like that he could be back in the postseason. And right now, I mean, wouldn't you roll the dice on Spencer Turnbull if they feel that he's healthy? I would probably roll the dice on Spencer Turnbull if they feel that he's healthy.
Yeah, it depends how he looks Friday, but yeah.
Right, if he looks good and if he's healthy,
Yeah, it's just the Taijuan thing hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked, and I think you did a great job answering part of that question about what do you do now, postseason roster. If you're going to carry him as a mop-up man, he's going to come in with the team down. He's just going to try to get you to the end of the game, right?
Right.
I don't know that you're going to bring him into a tie game in extra innings because the way he's pitching, it ain't going to be tied much longer.
Right.
So, and as far as the long term, I've been saying this for a while. It's just, for me, it'd be tough to bring him back. I just think it's been such a difficult year. I don't think he inspires confidence of his teammates. Where he is in his career, I have a hard time seeing it come back. It might. Maybe he camps out in Seattle at Driveline in the offseason and gets something going. I don't know. Maybe you can eat $17 million. He's owed 18 and 18. Maybe you can eat 17 and 17 and move him to a team where he gets a fresh start. I just think bringing him in, it becomes sort of a distraction because, every bullpen session, is going to be scrutinized. Every outing in the Grapefruit League is going to be scrutinized, and a poor outing is going to raise all these old questions again. It becomes a distraction. It's kind of like, what we're seeing right now with the Eagles. It's kind of obvious that the team pondered a coaching change in the offseason right after their season ended last year. They did not make a coaching change. Well, all of a sudden now the biggest issue surrounding this team is the head coach. And is he calling the plays? Is he not calling the plays? Is he in charge? Is he not in charge? It never goes away. So, and given what you've gotten from Taijuan Walker, I think, and where you might be going and what you might be getting from him in the future, knowing the way these things go, and kind of projecting what you think you might get from him in terms of on the mound contributions, it's hard for me to see them getting a positive contribution. I think they have to strongly consider eating the contract and letting him go. And he's been a good guy and a good teammate, but I just think it's a tough game, and sometimes you got to make tough decisions. And I'm not even sure this decision is that tough, but we'll see.
And there, now it hasn't happened a lot, but now there is some precedent of some teams eating big contracts like that. I mean, it would be up there for sure. Pablo Sandoval, Madison Bumgarner. There's a couple other guys whose contracts were massive, and that teams just DFA'd them and said, you know what, we're not going to get anything out of this. And I feel like if we just talked about John Middleton, if there's an owner out there who's going to go this offseason, and like if Dave Dombrowski says, I think we can sign this guy and this guy for starting pitching depth, maybe until Andrew Painter is ready or whatever, but we got to get rid of Taijuan to do it, to get these guys to sign, because they don't want to look at competition, whatever the case may be. I think John goes, all right. I don't think he's going to love it, but I think he wants to win. So,
but if you're really not, if you're not getting a contribution,
that's right. So I think it's like, okay, sunk cost.
And I just don't think he inspires any confidence with the people who play behind him. In that case, it might be addition by subtraction. But there are so many issues that go with this. The inability to develop any organizational pitching depth is crazy. You need to figure that out and bring in some more. But I know what I would do. I would shake his hand and say goodbye. And I'm not sure it's the right answer, but that would be the way I would go.
T. Montgomery on Instagram. Cal Stevenson or Weston Wilson for the last bench spot on the playoff roster. And then, I think his name is Cod Broad on Instagram. Who will make the postseason player cut for the postseason roster? So kind of the same question. Do you have any thoughts on what that last bench spot would be? They optioned Cal the other day when they activated Austin Hayes, but that does not mean Cal cannot make the postseason roster. You get position players 10 days after being optioned when they're eligible to come back. So Cal can come back and make this postseason roster.
So, and you have Cody Clemens, we think is going to make it.
I would think Cody, right? Because they seem to love his at-bats. He can play infield and outfield.
Yeah. So he's a left-handed bat. Maybe you carry Weston Wilson. Maybe it comes down to the last day, and when you know who your opponent is, and you bear down on the splits and all that stuff. Maybe it's a matchup type decision based on the opponent.
That's what I tend to think it's going to be. Because if Austin Hayes is back, is Weston Wilson going to play much in left field? Probably not, because Austin Hayes' splits are so ridiculous, righties versus lefties. So I don't know that Austin sees any time in left field in the postseason and in a platoon split. But yeah, if there's a lot of lefties in the bullpen, maybe it's Weston. So yeah, I tend to think it might come down to matchups. V Twins 2008 on X. Do you think the Phillies will get the number one seed in the postseason? Now the Dodgers
have a game behind right now.
They're a half game. They own the tiebreaker, which is important.
Yeah.
So the Phillies, of course, have 3 this weekend against the Nationals. Dodgers have they play, when we're recording this, they have 1 more against the Padres and then 3 on the road against the Rockies. So all they got to do is tie.
All they got to do is tie. I think they have a very good chance.
Yeah,
I do. I think they have a very good chance.
Yeah, they got no. Yeah, I do, because they got Wheeler and Nola going this weekend. So even if they dial them back, they're going to be in a position to win the game. Even if they do rest a regular or 2, they still have enough pop in that lineup to beat a Nationals team who's thinking who's already clearing out their lockers as we speak.
Right. I mean, favorable schedule for the Phillies, and we all know what the last weekend of a season looks like in a big league clubhouse when you're not making the playoffs. There are those cardboard U-Haul boxes everywhere. Somebody goes to the U-Haul store and they buy packing tape and those cardboard boxes, and they're folded up, and the guys open them up and tape them up. And that's what the Nationals clubhouse looks like right now. People throwing stuff in the U-Haul boxes and taking it to the pack and ship.
100%. And all those players are going to the clubbies going, hey, can I get another box? Or hey, can you send this here? Can you send that? That's the entire conversation that last weekend for the Nationals players.
But you're still going to go out and play. You got to stomp them. And I think if you get early leads and stomp them early, you really demoralize them, and you have them, looking on their travel app on their phone to see when their flight is.
Exactly right. And I think the Phillies also, they have enough pride. They're going to want to go out there and play well. And I think if they can get that number 1 seed, that's something that they're going to want to do. So I don't think the Phillies are going to go into this weekend coasting. I think they know they have the bye week coming up. They want to go in playing well. They want to get their at bats. They want to stay sharp. So I don't think there's going to be any we got the bye. We have the first round bye. Let's just roll. Let's just roll over. So
it's funny. I got that same question yesterday from a buddy of ours, Rich Hopkins, asked me.
Oh yeah. If they're
he texted me. I was at the gym, and
he wanted to know.
He wanted to know, and I think they have a pretty decent shot.
Jim, we'll be right back.
We're busy. You're busy. And figuring out food all the time is a hassle, especially when you're trying to eat right. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals.
Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor features fresh, never frozen meals, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great-tasting meals.
Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and salmon. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore.
Head to factormeals.com/FOUL50 and use code FOUL50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code FOUL50 at factormeals.com/FOUL50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
And we are back. Jim, we get this every week, but people want to know, who do you think would be the best potential matchup for the Phillies in the postseason, and who would be the worst potential matchup? Do you want me to go over their season records head-to-head on these potential NLDS opponents?
I think so. They're game under 500 against the Braves, right?
Correct.
They have a winning record against the Dodgers.
Right. Yep. But they're not going to play them.
You can't see the Dodgers though
until the NLCS. They're 5-1 against the Padres, 3-4 against the Diamondbacks, 7-6 against the Mets.
You know what? I might just. I like the Diamondbacks team. They can run.
Mm-hmm.
They got a little pop. They got some good pitching, starting pitching. But I might just, all season long, it seems like, and they scare me a little bit, but
sure.
Any team scares me if that team plays well and you don't play well. But why not, open the mouth of the beast right out of the gate and stick your head in and say, we're not scared of you. Why not bring them on?
Bring them on, bring them that. You know what? I feel the same way. I feel like it's not like the Diamondbacks are a better team than the Phillies, or were a better team than the Phillies last year. The Phillies just had a terrible 5 games, and They swang out of their shoes. They got out of their game plan. They chased way too many pitches. Yeah, right. Well, right. But I mean, they were up 2-0, and then they just, those final 5 were terrible. But yeah, those 2 games at home, I don't think there's a team. If the Phillies don't win the World Series this year, or I should say if they don't get to the World Series, if they would get knocked out in the NLDS, I don't think it's because they played a team that they don't match up great against. Yeah. I think it's because they just played bad. That's my opinion. I think it's because they chased too many pitches. It's going to be because one of their starters had a bad game, or one of their bullpen pieces they've all been really, really good lately, they had a bad game or whatever. I don't think it's going to be because, oh man, this is a team that they just can't beat. They just don't match up well. When the Phillies are playing their best, they still can't beat the Diamondbacks or the Mets or the Braves or the Padres. I think if they're playing their best or playing well, they can beat anybody in the National League.
Yeah,
crazy.
I'm more worried about, if I was the Phillies skipper, I'd be more worried about my own clubhouse than the other clubhouse.
Right. Weston Wilson fan on Instagram. Will the Phillies re-sign Jeff Hoffman this offseason? That's honestly something I haven't really given a lot of thought to at this point, but he's a free agent after the season.
I think
relief pitchers are very volatile. He's going to cost a lot of money. they have Carlos Estevez is also a free agent. I don't know if you could re-sign both of those guys. I don't know if it makes sense to re-sign both of those guys. I think you would love to have both of those guys. But
Reminds me a little bit of back in the 07 to 2011 outstanding period they had. Remember J.C. Romero?
Mhm.
He was actually, I think, a release from Boston, and Ruben signed him, brought him in. He had that great run, and then he became a free agent, and they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. Now, I know the market was a lot different then. But do I think they'll re-sign Jeff Hoffman? I think they're going to try. He's really a valuable piece. I think they're going to try. He's found success here. I would think there'll be mutual interest, but he also has to look out for himself and make the best deal possible. But I think he's a pretty important guy down there. So I think there's a very good chance.
If well, I wonder if it's like tie goes to the runner. If you can sign only one of them, say for instance Estevez or Hoffman, I wonder how that comes into play. Does the front office go, well, we gave up a lot to get Estevez, so we'd like to keep him to show a little bit more something for the trade, or does that not come into play? I guess it's just the best baseball decision, probably.
Yeah, I have a feeling they might skew a little bit more toward Hoffman. A little more history there with him. I mean, you gave up 2 good arms, but if you
knew that going in,
you knew it going in, and if you pick up a World Series championship here and keep packing that house, it's going to be worth it.
Ant Pirandozzi on X. Out of all the NL East clinchers, which one is your guy's favorite? Reason why?
NL East clinchers?
Yeah, NL East, Phillies NL East clinchers. I wasn't around for anything before 07, so I guess it's 07, 11, and then this year.
Neither was I. I started covering
right, 94. 94, okay, so the year after.
Yeah, the year.
I guess for me, it's 07 because that broke the streak, and I remember fans were you talk about the Mets fans going nuts. Same type of vibe that year in 07. It was like, oh my God, finally, 14 years. And so the excitement that day, Jason Worth has talked about that a lot over the years. Walking out in the field a half an hour before the game and just fans going freaking nuts because they were watching the game on the scoreboard, the score change on the scoreboard in right field back when they had the scores on there. And just the roar of the crowd throughout that game was so much fun. And the team just had a blast celebrating that one. Yeah, that was cool. And then the other one for me would be, 2010 with Halladay getting in and those guys. Remember that they waited. Roy was doing an interview on the field with Gary Matthews, and they're all sitting there with the champagne bottles. And it was Brian Schneider and was it Mike Sweeney?
Yep.
Okay. 2 other guys that had never been in the postseason, and they waited for Roy to come in because they wanted them to be the first guys to pop those champagne bottles. I thought that was cool. That was down at Nationals Park.
That was really cool. I remember that like it was yesterday. That tells you how much respect they had for Doc.
Yeah.
And 07, you're right on. That whole lead up to the 07 clinch, because they hadn't been in the playoffs in 14 years, and they make this run. And it was like every night you can't wait to get to the ballpark to see what's going to happen as they're chasing down the Mets. It was such a drama. And then, when they finally did it, I remember that day the ballpark was packed and the white towels. And, I remember my kids begging me to go to the game. They were little. And,
that's cool.
It was just very, very memorable 07. And the Doc one was very memorable. I remember the night they clinched in 11. I remember you and I talking to Cliff Lee's wife on the field.
That's right. That's right. About coming back. And that's right. That's right.
And I remember you talking about how his mannerisms, you asking her about his mannerisms and how he's just like shrugging whatever. And she goes, what is with him saying whatever all the time?
That's right. I do remember her saying that. Yeah, because every time we asked him something, right? He was just like,
so chill.
Whatever. How he caught that ball in the 09 World Series in Game 1. He did whatever. This is from Evan. Well, 2 more, and then we'll get rolling here. Evan J. Neese on X. Do you see this period of Phillies baseball as finally making the transition to being perennial contenders like the Yankees, Dodgers, or Braves? Given the changes we've seen in player development, the front office, it feels like they are making all the right moves.
Well, that's certainly what they want, and that's certainly what the owner wants. He wants them to be there every year. They have the financial resources to do it, to go out and get that complimentary free agent or even that free agent to put you over the top. I mean, look at their roster right now, dotted with high-priced free agents. But, I still think it's vital that you have the organizational infrastructure to bring your own players, because I don't think you can survive always by free agency. And I do think they've made great strides there in building the infrastructure of their franchise. And, they have some good-looking players. Justin Crawford was in town on Wednesday night. Obviously, this Aiden Miller kid, Andrew Painter. So, it takes all aspects. You need to build your own guys, and you need to be able to have the wherewithal to go out and add the key free agents. So, do I think they can sustain? Yeah, and I think they're a big market. That has to be almost not just the goal; it has to be the expectation.
Right.
Look at the support they get in the stands every night. So if you keep putting winners on, you're going to get that support, and it's going to be able to kind of sustain and self-sustain by the support you get from this market. So it's a great, great market, and it proves it to us. Whenever they win. This year, just another example. So I think, it should be the norm rather than the exception, stretches like this.
Bryce said on Monday night, he said, people talk about windows. He's like, there is no window here with John in charge, basically, and Dave in charge, that they're going to try to, ring. And I get what he's saying. There is a window now. And then he also said at the end, he's like, this is our window right now, because he knows that there's only so many prime years left of Bryce Harper. Sure, he hopes to be one of the guys in his late 30s, early 40s, still hitting 30 bombs a season. And, I'm sure they hope that Trey Turner is still hitting 300, whatever position he's playing in 9 years from now.
I do agree with the commitment you have from ownership and the infrastructure you've built all phases of the operation, player development wise. You should be able to sustain that window, and you should be able to keep creating new windows. But that said, I think the window is now for this nucleus.
Totally.
The Schwarber, Harper, Realmuto, Wheeler, Nola, Turner, Castellanos nucleus. I think it's right now.
Absolutely.
And when the window closes on this nucleus, Miller, Painter, Crawford, maybe a different free agent, maybe a veteran Bohm, a veteran Stott. They will still be here, but it becomes, kind of a different window, if you will.
Right. Last one. This is from Phil's Info 10 on X. Does the Red October crowd have a similar impact on visiting beat writers as it does on visiting players? I'm not screaming at Mark Bowman or my colleague from MLB.com, our Braves writer. I'm not intimidating him like Phillies fans. But I will say this though, it is kind of cool to see visiting broadcasters and visiting writers come in and say, that was insane. That was insane. I've never seen a postseason crowd like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen a postseason crowd like that. And I think, I don't know if I said this on this show recently or if I was talking to somebody about it. I think the big difference between Citizens Bank Park and the other 29 ballparks in the postseason is that every ballpark will get loud. Petco Park will get loud if the Phillies and Padres are playing. And Dodger Stadium will get insanely loud. It will get as loud as Citizens Bank Park in the postseason if Shohei Ohtani hits a 3-run bomb in the 9th inning to beat the Phillies in an NLCS game. But I think the big difference is that the crowd in Philly will get loud, will stay loud throughout. They will recognize a 7-pitch at bat work going into a 12-pitch at bat. They will get louder and louder and louder. They will sense a rally brewing, and they will get on their feet and cheer for that. That's the thing. I think the big difference is they can sense when a team is in trouble, the opposing team is in trouble, and they will get really loud to try to intimidate the pitcher. I don't see that at other parks. So it is cool to see that it's not just me thinking that way, that it's like the other opposing writers and opposing broadcasters, like, man, like John Smoltz was in New York the other day. He says, I think he said it on our show too. I've never seen a ballpark like that in the postseason before.
And it's happened for a long time, going back to the NLCS in the 70s when the Veteran Stadium fans rattled Bert Hooton. They can really rattle an opposing team. But it's like chicken and the egg. I think it needs to be performance from the home team, Phillies as well, because that's what they really latch onto and build their it kind of becomes like a wildfire. When the team is playing well, it gets louder and louder and louder. But I hear comments from guys who come into that stadium and say, "Wow, this place is a madhouse." But you're right. I've seen Dodger Stadium a madhouse. San Diego in 2022 was a madhouse. Citi Field, I would imagine, is going to be nuts.
Oh yeah.
I covered the Yankees in the old ballpark. I covered all their postseason runs, 96 through 01. And you'd sit in the press box and it would shake. It would shake.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'd think this thing is going down. So, it's, but I do think, that Rob Thompson quote, 4 hours of hell, it does mean something, but the team's got to perform. It got quiet in game 6 and 7 last year against Arizona.
Remember what Jeff Francoeur said when we talked to him, and I don't know when that was, in June. He said he was taking the car ride over before game 6. He's doing the game for TBS, and he could tell everybody was nervous. The guy his driver, he's like, I'm a little nervous about this one. And sure enough, they got down and the crowd got really tense and really quiet. And it was like that in game 5 of the 11 NLDS too. They got down 1-0. You could sense everybody was on pin. Oh my God.
That ballpark was so tight in that in 11. Again, is that game 5?
That was game 5. Yeah.
When I think of the postseason at Citizens Bank Park, I remember we were working together at the Inquirer, and the Phillies, I guess it was 07 because they finally got back to the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
And the late, great Jerry Fraley walks in the press box. Do you remember this?
I know. I do not remember this. Okay.
Oh, you're gonna remember it when I tell you.
All right.
The late, great Jerry Fraley, who actually worked in Philadelphia in the 80s, he comes into the press box. He's working in Dallas. He comes into the press box at Citizens Bank Park and says, "What happened to the vet? Where's the vet?"
It's been such a long time.
And I said to you, because you were writing like the main bag, there's your lead right there. It's how long has it been since the Phillies have been in the postseason? And then you quote this visiting writer, "What happened to the vet? Where's the vet?" You remember that now?
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, Jerry was an all-timer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer. Yeah, went in. All right, guys, we will be back next week. It'll be the bye week. We'll have a lot to talk about. We can really dig into the rosters and how they're going to line up the pitching and how are they going to stay sharp so they don't have to, deal with those questions about the bye affecting them. And we'll get into all that stuff next week. So, Jim, I will smell you later.
All righty. Smell you later, buddy.
This is The Phillies Show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Phillies Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. If you like what we do, give us a review. Tell a friend. Catch Ruben, Jim, and me on Phillies Nation TV, presented by Valley Forge Tourism. New episodes air an hour before every Saturday Phillies game on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Replays air throughout the week and on PhilliesNation.com. Get more of Ruben's analysis during, before, and after Phillies games on NBC Sports Philadelphia, on the Sports Radio 94 WIP Morning Show, and MLB Network. Read Jim at the All City Network at allphly.com. Find more of me at MLB.com, the Phillies Beat newsletter, and occasionally on MLB Network.